area, the alert desk here at Erie News Now. And, you know, Emily, I can't believe that we are just 1 week away from Election Day.
7 days. The countdown is on, right? It's been on for quite some time, but it's getting really close now. So
it really is. And we know that the road to the White House is actually happening through Erie County. We've already seen both candidates, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, make their way to Erie County. And now we're getting word today and confirmation that Karen Pence, the wife of Vice President Mike Pence, will be coming to Edinburgh this Thursday afternoon. So some big news here as yet another campaign stop makes its way around.
Yeah, not surprising. We had CNBC here yesterday doing several reports talking about there are several states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, that are going to be huge for this election and deciding it. But it's really fascinating, I thought, that Erie County is going to be, you know, so prevalent in making this decision essentially for the presidency. How important Erie County is just amazing.
I've been here almost 10 years, Emily. You've been here even longer. You're an Erie native. And I know that as long as I've been here, you've been out on the streets on Election Day, usually, you know, starting at the polls for our 12 noon show. And so you were out at the 2016 election. But we know that this is going to be very, very different. And even back then, there were long lines at the polls. I know that you talked to the Erie County Elections clerk, Doug, yesterday, Doug Smith, and what did he tell you?
They're just busier as ever. You know, on Election Day, they're expected to open 60,000 ballots.
Wow.
And they can't open them until 7 a.m. on Election Day. He tells me they've been working 7-day work weeks, been extremely busy. And they're expecting it to be very busy at the polls too. And he said, also try to go at peak or non-peak times, you know, right in the morning before work. A lot of people tend to go, and of course at lunchtime on their lunch break. So if you can go outside of those hours, that'd be good. But presidential elections always bring out the crowds, obviously, more so than local elections. But 45 minutes, he said, half hour, 45 minutes,
really?
Expect to wait.
See, I would have thought longer than that.
Yeah, he said if you go, I mean, those peak times.
Non-peak times, yeah.
Those non-peak times, if you go, you can expect that, he was saying. But, yeah, so just kind of choose wisely, I guess, when you go to cast your ballot. But exciting for sure. It's such a great thing that we were able to do, so.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. There'll be a lot of people doing it for sure.
Yeah, and you and I will be out and about. Our whole news team is going to be really starting today and all throughout Election Day and thereafter on the streets, in and around, on social media. So we really hope that you kind of welcome us in on so many different platforms to wherever you're watching, whether it be on social media or just on television as well.
For sure.
All
We'll be around. We'll be everywhere.
Yeah, we sure will.
Yeah, for the next week, for sure, too. So.
Yeah, and we're going to take a live look at the White House right now. As you can see, things look all quiet from this view. We know that both candidates are on the campaign trail right now, and Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, just such a big part, crucial part of this upcoming election. We're also going to welcome in Kathy Dahlkemper, Erie County Executive Kathy Dahlkemper as well. You know, she has had her career in politics, and we're also merging politics with COVID-19 this year. So what a really odd year this is.
Oh, for sure.
And we are also talking about some spikes in Erie County, along with the Commonwealth as well. We got the numbers from the State Department of Health earlier today, and just in Pennsylvania, over 2,700 new cases today. So 23 new deaths. Again, as we are looking at this live shot out of the White House, we know that the White House has not been far from COVID-19, with the president and the first lady, even their young son Barron, getting the virus already, and some very close staffers of Mike Pence as well, the vice president. But we want to turn our attention right now and welcome in Erie County Executive Kathy Dahlkemper. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be with you.
Well, nice to have you here. We spoke just a little while ago when you came here to the studio, and we were talking about the 41 new cases that were reported today by the County Health Department. And you had said that there is a link to some specific events potentially that led to these 41 cases. What are they?
So one of the links is Halloween scary events. So we always have talked about the fact that singing is not good and yelling is not good. And when people go through something spooky, whether it be a haunted house or a spooky hayride, they're yelling and they're screaming, and we're finding there's actually some COVID being passed during those moments. So we've talked to some of the places that have those spooky hayrides, and they are toning them down and trying to change how they do things. A hayride's fine as long as everyone's wearing a mask and you're trying to sit socially distant, but it's not okay to scream. So please don't do things that are spooky. Keep Halloween more fun, less spooky this year. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we see happening is in family units. So when you are tested for COVID-19, when you have some symptoms, you are told to isolate. You should isolate from everyone who lives in your home, too. That means you need to go into your bedroom, have your own bathroom, hopefully, if that's feasible in your home, and stay away from your spouse, your children, anyone else who lives in the home. That's not happening with too many families, and we're seeing the spread within family units. So instead of one person having COVID-19, now 2, 3, maybe even more people within the household. So those are a couple things that all of us can try to make changes and help protect our community. And of course, always wearing your mask and keeping socially distanced from those you don't live with.
And you know what, you and your team have really done a good job of updating us really all throughout this pandemic. I know early on for several months, you were doing daily news briefings, and now you're doing weekly news briefings on Wednesday, which we air here live at Erie News Now. They're at 3 p.m. on Wednesdays. And you bring in people from the health department and from county government to kind of share exactly what they're seeing and how we could go best about mitigating the spread in our own community. And so with Halloween, it's been kind of the focus, not really the focus, but a focus over the past few news briefings. You've talked about, ways that people can safely do it. You've talked about how you could shoot out candy, from your porch and things of that nature.
A catapult somebody created, I mean, there's different ways. We don't want to stop having all fun in our lives, right? And Halloween is a big holiday, especially for the children. So how can we make it safe? And we really need to start having serious conversations about the holidays in general. Thanksgiving will be the next holiday after this. And then we'll, of course, run into Christmas, Hanukkah, and all of those other holidays that happen at the end of December. How are we going to celebrate safely? It has to be different this year. I know none of us want to hear that, but we all have to think about how we do this safely. We do not want to end up passing COVID back and forth amongst our loved ones, and then potentially some tragedy happens. And one of the other things we don't know is what the long-term effects are from people who have COVID-19. And so there's a lot we don't know yet about this virus, and we all need to do the best we can to protect ourselves. So start having those conversations now. Figure out how you do this safely. Some families told me they're doing Zoom Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. They're going to have their own Thanksgiving with their family unit, and their other family members that they normally get together with are going to be on Zoom, and they're going to do it that way. Someone else told me they're just going to meet during the day for a walk. They're going to be out in a park. They're going to go take like a family hike, maybe their own little family turkey trot. Mm-hmm. How can we just do things more uniquely, differently, but safely this year?
Yeah, and a lot of families travel to get together during the holidays, especially Thanksgiving as well, and that will have to change as well for so many people that have, that safety in mind and should have that safety in mind so that we can, kind of fight this together.
COVID, unfortunately, 19 is here to stay for a number of months. I really personally wouldn't expect to see much change until we're into the warmer weather again. Mm-hmm. And wintertime is just that much more difficult because we are inside, and that's where the virus really likes to spread. When outside and the wind's blowing, it doesn't spread as easily. So
unless you're screaming and singing,
right. And don't
not
scream.
wearing a mask.
Yeah, no screaming, no singing. Right. If you want to sing, go off by yourself and sing outside, but do not sing around others. So, go out, have a little bit of fun at Halloween. We're talking about opening up our garage door and maybe having our grandchildren come over in the afternoon to do a few little fun activities. I might hang donuts from a string and each child have their own donut. You've seen that old trick.
That's cool.
But doing something, again, where we can be mostly outside, and then it's supposed to be a decent day, and then, they can go back to their families and do whatever. But we could still see them in their costumes, have fun together, but do it safely.
Now, I want to ask you this because I don't know if in the back of your mind you're just wondering, because we haven't gotten to that 14-day time frame yet, but 1 week ago, President Trump was here in an event that brought out people shoulder to shoulder at the Erie International Airport. And so We're seeing 41 cases that you're saying are linked to some outdoor events, but are you hearing anything coming from that event?
So there's nothing yet, and I say yet, coming from that very large rally. But when we think about the numbers that came out today, those were people who got their test results basically yesterday, because it's as of midnight. So that really was only about 5 days from the actual rally. So I would expect if we see some results from that, it will be in the next few days up to the next week. I'm also not happy, I guess, that Mrs. Pence is coming here. I say that because the chief of staff of her husband has now been tested and is positive for COVID-19. I know our contact tracers, our investigators, would be telling anyone else in that situation, you need to stay quarantined for 14 days. So even if they are tested every single day, to me, the wise thing and the true example as a leader would be to stay home and stay quarantined. So I would really caution people from going into any event like that, especially if they're not socially distancing and everyone's not wearing a mask. And I'm not sure if it's outside or inside, but these are all the things, not only around the vice president's wife's visit, but everything we do. We should be thinking about how do we stay away from crowds, how do we stay outside when we're around other people if we can. Always, always wear your mask when you're out and about. And, and of course, wash your hands and sanitize them. So think about that with every event, whether it's a political event or something else you're doing. How can you keep you and yourself and your family safe?
Okay, we're going to take a look at our website right here because, we talked about the 41 cases in Erie County right now, and our website is also where you're going to be able to find out the information about Karen Pence coming to Erie County. So once again, with the Erie County Executive Kathy Dahlkemper, we want to ask you, does the county have any true, I don't want to say stance, but do they have any power to say to, somebody at the White House, no, you cannot bring your campaign here?
So when President Trump came, and honestly, this was anybody else who comes here, it's not just Republicans, it's Democrat, Republican, we have a letter that we send out to the organization who's hosting that event to tell them what the guidance is in Erie County. We expect them to follow the guidance that we have here. They did not obviously when President Trump came here. I don't really know yet what the details are around Mrs. Pence's visit. But we don't, we'd have to bring the law enforcement in, and it's probably something that would be very controversial. And in the end of the day, we hope that all candidates would follow our guidance here in Pennsylvania and here in Erie County.
Okay, and we do have details on Karen Pence's visit, again, this Thursday in Edinburgh. You can find them right on our website, what we're looking at right now, erienewsnow.com. She's going to be speaking at Whispering Trees Manor in Edinburgh. Doors opening at 12:30, so that leads me to believe that it could be indoors. We don't know the details exactly. We will bring them to you, as the information becomes available. We sure do appreciate you giving us your time right now here at our alert desk at Erie News Now. As we're going to continue from 2 to about 2:30 for the next few days here at this alert area, bringing you kind of up to speed and community interviews to kind of keep us connected all together during this pandemic and ahead of the election. So thanks so much. I know that you and your team are really working hard.
The election will be safe. And so if people want to go to the polls, we are doing everything that needs to be done to keep you as safe as possible when you go to the polls. So please know, if you haven't voted by mail, and you still can up until Election Day, till the polls close, you can still vote by mail by putting your ballot in the box outside of the courthouse. But if you want to go to the polling place, go and know that you will be safe. We are doing everything we can to keep that COVID safe.
Well, we appreciate all the work that is being done. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you.
Erie County Executive Kathy Dahlkemper. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And our Paul Wagner was laying in wait. I saw him over here. I'm not so sure if he's still nearby or not. Yes, he is. We're going to bring him in as well because, Paul has been here several decades as a reporter and as an anchor, and he has covered a lot of presidential visits, a lot of presidential elections and campaigns. So we want to talk to him a little bit about the election, the upcoming election. Thank you, County Executive Kathy Dahlkemper. So Paul is joining us here in the alert zone, and Paul, we know that this seems to be so different than any other presidential election. Can you talk a little bit about some of the more memorable ones that you have had over time, covering them as a reporter?
Yeah, there's been a lot here in Erie. Some people will remember some of them before this year when we had the rally that President Trump attended last week, where you and I were. Probably with President George W. Bush was at Veterans Stadium back when he was running for re-election, and he had well over 10,000 people. Of course, we didn't have the COVID situation then that we have now, and there were people protesting outside. There were thousands of people inside, young people, old people, and tremendous security that day. He drove in from Cleveland to Erie driving, and the helicopters followed him all along Interstate 90.
Oh, wow. And
the state police and the Ohio Patrol would close off each intersection as he went. They would totally seal it off so that motorcade could drive 100 miles an hour from Cleveland. I think they got here in about an hour from Cleveland. But that was certainly a memorable one. President Obama, when he was running for re-election, was at the center out at Penn State Jordan, the Junker Center, and that was a memorable one. A lot of excitement when he was running as the first African American. A lot of excitement there.
Your takeaway so far, covering so many election stories in these weeks, months leading up to 1 week from today.
Well, it's just hard because of COVID. It's really changed the whole dynamic. I mean, when Joe Biden was here, we were very limited as to how many people we could have there, and he kept it very socially distant. Circles literally on the pavement where people could stand. So we had no interaction, no questions, it was very weird. And even when President Trump came, there were no questions from the media, no interviews with the candidate. So that was a little different than in the past. Normally the candidates, they know how important Pennsylvania is, like it is this year, and they would make a reach out to the local stations, but that's just, COVID has made that all impossible or very difficult to do.
It really has. And you were covering both the events recently here in Erie County with Joe Biden and with President Trump. And they campaign very differently. You're seeing, bus stop tours with Joe Biden and him, just yesterday in Chester, Pennsylvania, getting off at a field office and saying thank you to the volunteers there, not really having the mass of people like President Trump did here in Erie and in other parts of Pennsylvania and across the nation.
Yeah, Biden is fortunate that he has a lot of money, so he's doing a lot of television and radio and social media advertising to make up for what he's not doing on the ground, because he's not nearly getting the crowds and going out and visiting Pennsylvania. I mean, President Trump was in 3 cities in Pennsylvania just yesterday, 3 in one day, including Altoona in our area. Biden's not doing that, but he does have a lot of money, a big war chest, bigger than the president's, and he's doing a lot of television and a lot of radio advertising.
Yeah, so we will see where the chips fall, of course, with all that, because we know that there's a lot of different polls out there, and some of them have them closer than others. So there's set to be a lot more analyzing going on, of course, in the next week or so. Anything that you would like to say as you are working ahead to the story tonight?
Well, I'm doing a story tonight that's kind of interesting. We talk about Pennsylvania being ground zero and Erie County being ground zero. In our area, probably Union City is ground zero. That's where I was today, because it's really kind of interesting that the Trump headquarters and the Biden headquarters are literally side by side with just a vacant storefront in between. And today, while we were out there, the volunteers were holding their signs on the sidewalk, getting cars to honk their horns and wave. But I mean, they're literally right next to each other. It's kind of a good-natured rivalry going on between them. And they're both going to have rallies, and so that's kind of my story tonight, looking at kind of a microcosm of Erie County, how it's so important, how we're so divided, and how there can be a little bit of a rivalry, sometimes maybe heated, sometimes more a friendly rivalry. And we're going to take a look at how it's going down in Union City tonight.
And you never saw that before in Union City, right? This is the first time that they've pretty much been side by side this campaign.
It's rural Erie County, so it's Trump country. It's definitely a Trump country. But the Democrats have made a conscious effort under Jim Wirtz to get out. They have a field office in Northeast. They have a field office in Union City, trying to get those Democrats who are in the county, if they want to sign, if they want to help out, they don't have to drive all the way into the city. They can do it in their communities. But some of these communities are overwhelmingly Republican, but the Democrats are trying to get those votes out there, and so it is a little bit different.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. We know that you're going to go back and work on your story about Union City. And are you doing a live shot tonight?
Not tonight. I'll be here in the station.
Okay. Paul has been out pretty regularly. You've seen him out and about, ahead of elections here. So our Paul Wagner, a senior reporter here at Erie News Now. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Eva. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. I'm going to take my mic off and get back to work.
Okay. And like I said, about 2 o'clock every afternoon for the next few days, we're going to be here at the Alert Desk, kind of bringing you up to speed with some of the news of the day, some of the big breaking stories, and also talking to people in our community weighing in on the election, on COVID, and we want to take some questions from you if you have any. So, of course, our Facebook page is always a good vehicle for that, as well as calling our newsroom. So we appreciate you joining us right now. We're going to take one last look at the White House, as again, 1 week from today, we will find out, as voters go to the poll, who may be a little bit closer to officially either staying at the White House or coming back in. So I'm Eva Mastromatteo. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of the afternoon.